Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Claudia. I'm the project assistant for PCCEP, and I will be reading off the PCCEP group values. The first one is listen effectively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspectives, assume positive intent, respect each other, respect the group, speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, ask questions to clarify, call out bias, and be okay with ambiguity. And then we also want to share with you guys very quickly the Zoom housekeeping. As staff, me, Judith, and Theo, we just look out really for Zoom bombers. We've been Zoom bombed a few times, so we just really look out for those interruptions. And then we just ask that if folks are not speaking, just keep your mic on mute. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Now we're going to move into our, I was going to say morning, but typical meeting check-in, announcements, if anybody has anything. And the question of the evening is, what are your holiday plans? Like, what are you looking forward to in the next few weeks through the holiday season? So I will go first. I'm Amy Anderson, your chair. And I want to have some nice weather so I can get out and do some maybe hiking or some activities to be out in the forest with the trees. That's what I'd like to do. So I'm going to pass the ball to Claudia. You go next. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. I'm really looking forward to this Christmas because I have my nieces and nephews coming from California, and this is their first Christmas in Portland. So I'm really looking forward to just spending that real family time and having folks here. So thank you. I will go ahead and pass it to Theo.
Thanks, Claudia. Theo Lada, he, him pronouns. I'm just looking forward to reading a lot of books with my son and then going fishing. I will pass it to Gloria.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gloria Canson. I'm looking forward to this season so that I can kind of relax, reflect. Both of my daughters are going to Las Vegas for Christmas, and that's usually who has Christmas dinner. All three of us, and we have it at my place, and they bring all the kids, the grandchildren, and the great-grands. Well, won't be like this. It won't be like this. They'll be gone. So I will have a chance to reflect. Okay. I will pass it on to, is it Barnish? Banish.
Very close, Vamshi. Thank you, Gloria. Vamshi Reddy, she, her pronouns. I'm with the city attorney's office. And I think I am most looking forward to seeing my mother-in-law in Maine, who is recently widowed, and we were not able to spend last Christmas with her. And she lives in an old farmhouse in Maine, and it is such a big schlep from Portland. It literally is the other sort of, side of the country. But I have a 9-year-old son, and he's super excited to see his babichka. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Mary Claire.
Hi there, Mary Claire Buckley, and I am, as opposed to Vamshi, who's not used to the schlepping, I schlepped across the country for probably 35 years, but now that my dad and mom have passed, I am staying here this year, which will be a different experience, but looking forward to taking some time off from work and just seeing how the holidays are here in Portland. So, yeah. Thanks. I will pass it on to Leo.
Good evening, everyone. I am very much looking forward to cold weather, maybe some snow. I'm going to try to go to Baker City and take a week off out of town, away from work. Very much looking forward to it. And I will pass it on to Byron.
I'm looking forward to the season. Keeping squirrels out of my apartment. I can't wait. So it's going to be a good Christmas. I'm waiting on that. And I'm going to pass it to Sarah.
Ooh, why isn't that? I think my finger was too cold to turn it on. Hi, I'm Sarah, she, her pronouns from the city attorney's office. And I have a new beau since last year, and he's got a couple kids in their 20s out of town, and they're going to meet my 3 kids this Christmas for the first time. So everybody's coming in, and we hope it all goes great. So I'll pass it to Tia.
Hi, I'm Tia, a PCCEP member on the Behavioral Health Committee, and I'm looking forward to spending time with my niece and nephew who live next door. We always spend the holidays together. We just went out to St. Helens, and my nephew, who's 17, cut down our Christmas tree. And my freshman year niece and I like to do puzzles all through the holidays. And it's our little bonding time together. My nephew is applying to colleges right now from Jefferson High School. And so we've been every day working on college essays and scholarship applications. And I'm a retired school counselor. So we've been at it, and he has every day, I think all the way through January, we'll be working on college admission paperwork. But I really love it. It'll be his last December with us, and it's pretty emotional. It's going to be really hard to see him go. So just love my niece and nephew to pieces, and excited to be with them as their father passed away. So my sister and I really co-parent them, and trying to get them through their high school years, and as sisters. So the holidays are special. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Let's see. I need to scroll through to see. Jared.
Hi, thanks, Tia. Jared Hager, he, him pronouns. I'm with the United States Department of Justice here in my role as the monitor of a settlement agreement between the United States and the city of Portland. And I am, like some of the other folks, traveling across the country for the holidays, and I will be leaving for Miami on the 20th and staying for a couple of weeks, and it will be warm and good beach time. And we have an eco tent in the Everglades to spend Christmas Eve. So it's a little bit of an alternative Christmas, no furs, but we will have some Everglades and some gators and Crocs. It'll be good to be with my spouse. I will pass it to Judith.
Hi, everybody. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like this year. I'm looking forward. I'm taking 2 weeks off at the end of the month. I'm Gloria, I have 3 kids, and 2 of them, I'm not sure. One is going to be in Bend, and we'll see how the weather is to make it home. And the other one is a little bit anti-Christmas, so we'll see what I'm not asking her yet. But I really like my twin grandsons, and my son who lives in Gold Beach are going to come see me on the weekend of the 17th, and they just turned 4, and they're a blast. And then I'm just really looking forward to just, again, like other people say, time off. Yeah. I like puzzles too, Tia. So I like to do puzzles. I've been like doing some, knitting and stuff this year. So I'm just kind of looking forward to being at home, probably a lot of at home. And I live kitty corner to Peacock Lane. So it's just as well, because my driveway gets blocked regularly. But if any of you go to Peacock Lane, please feel free to stop by. And I will call on Barbara Bochin. Did I mute when I said before I said Barbara?
I'm gonna, here at our co-housing, we're gonna do a little something for solstice. I'm not sure what I'm doing for Christmas, but I do hope also for a little break in the rain so I can go hiking and stuff. Yeah. And the next person, let's see. Anika, have you gone?
I have not gone. Good evening, Anika Bent Albert, Deputy City Attorney for the City of Portland. She, her pronouns. Looking forward to connection this holiday season. We're driving down for the first time ever to Los Angeles. So me and my husband and our kids and the dog, which should be a hoot and a proper adventure, but we're going to see family there and get to, I love LA, so looking forward to the beach and good food and just different setting.
I think there's a few
Is that-
participants who haven't
let me
been
see.
called on.
Hang on. Chase, did you go?
Not yet.
There you go.
Thanks. Chase Bryson. I'm the Crisis Intervention Team Coordinator for the Portland Police Bureau. We're gonna have, I think, a low-key Christmas. So I'm just looking forward to being with family. I'm taking time off, which will be great. We might go to the beach for a few nights just to be somewhere else. That's it. And I am totally lost as to who has not gone. Is there anyone that hasn't gone?
Barb hasn't gone. Theo, did you go?
Yeah, I went. I think it's just
Okay,
you and
no, wait,
Amy.
you did. You said Sage. I remember now. Okay, last but not least, or somebody else speak up. Hi, my name is Barb. I use she, her pronouns. I am a peer support specialist and community advocate and a member, not of PCCEP, but of the subcommittee and Amy's right-hand person because she's left-handed. And bah humbug, I'm just gonna see what happens.
Gloria, did you get a chance to go check
Yes,
in?
yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if there's anyone else, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to go on. And tonight, we're going to bring forward topics important to my heart and a lot of others, and that's the subject of wellness. And so in that discussion, we're going to be presenting an actual explanation of how the policy and directives are done. So we as a committee can move forward in helping to develop recommendations to further the cause of wellness for officers. So on that note, I'm going to invite Mary Claire, who offered graciously to give us a little rundown of the process of the directives. Thank you, Mary Claire.
Surely, although offered, and I think Barb sort of told me, but I'll do whatever Barb says.
She's my advocate. She's a good advocate.
Yes, she's very convincing. And I apologize. I actually asked Ashley Lancaster, who is our policy director, if she could come tonight, but she had an appointment already. So I'm just going to give you my overview of the process as the policy team does, come under my reporting unit. For those of you who are new, directives are policies that guide the actions and behaviors of members of the Portland Police Bureau. There are currently probably over 200 different directives that the Bureau has at this point, although we are trying to see whether there is any way over time to, combine or reduce some of those, because that's significant number of policies that the members are responsible for knowing. And but they've, developed over the course of time. Well, obviously, we didn't start out with 200, but as things, come up, new policies are developed. And so about 5 years ago, we created a actual policy team to address the creation and review of existing ones. So there is actually a policy on policies. And the policy says that every one of the Bureau's directives should be reviewed every 2 years. When DOJ came into town and with the settlement agreement, there were certain policies. They went through the list of our policies and determined which ones they thought were germane to the, particularly germane to the settlement agreement, identified 47, I think it's probably now 48 directives that they're of particular concern to the Department of Justice as a result of the terms of the settlement agreement. And so those we determined had to be reviewed annually. So when the settlement agreement, if you read the settlement agreement, it says, for the first time around, new, the DOJ policies would be reviewed at the 6-month mark and thereafter annually. So God knows they've been around long enough that we've gotten through the 6-month. We've looked at all of them more than one time. So we're now on what should be an annual review, although frankly, that's a challenge in of itself as well, because the team also needs to review the other policies of that govern the actions of the members. So, there were 3 members to our team, then it dropped down to 2, but I'm very happy to say that I just got an acceptance letter from for a policy analyst position to help the team. So we will have a director and 2 members of that team, as soon as the background check is complete. So hopefully we'll be able to, tackle more of these. But as I said, it's that's a lot for 3 people to cover, given the process that we have in place. And so 5 years ago, when we established this team, we also set up a procedure, and it involves obviously having some community involvement in this process. And so when a directive is due for review, it is posted on our website on the directives page, and we can provide you with all this, the particulars, but we do have a web page, and you can actually sign up to be notified of directives being reviewed or for, making comments or what have you. So we'll give you that information. But when it's up, due for review, it is posted on our website for what we call first universal review. That version is what is the policy as it currently stands. Unless it's a new policy, then obviously we would have had to develop something for you to start with. But for the existing policies, we put up the one that is currently, and we ask the community to provide input, feedback, comments on the current policy before we delve into, any review or, changes that we might be interested in making. That process is a 15-day review. And then the policy comes down off universal review, and we have the next step is what we call executive reconciliation. And that's when the policy team digests all the public comments that are received, as well as internal comments, because this, review process is both for internal comments of members or employees, as well as the external community folks. So they'll go through and create, develop a directive based on the direction that they're given by the chief's office, as well as the comments that have been received We have subject matter experts in every aspect of these directives. So, for example, if it was about training, then we'd have members of the training division, work with the policy team. So for, depending upon the subject of the of the directive, we will have subject matter experts as well, mostly internal, giving us feedback on what they, think might need to be revised, adopted, or whatever. We also have a city attorney who works with our policy team and can advise us on things that need to be addressed, either due to changes in law or practices or what have you. So, we take all that information, and then the team, the policy team comes up with a draft of what we would propose the policy to be. That again, and that we meet with the chief's office to go over that proposal as well. You also should be aware that the police union, the PPA, has a role in these policies as well. And so they get to weigh in after we've come up with, our proposed final draft. They get to review it and give their comments. And then we will post it for what we call second universal review, which is a 30-day process. And that is another chance for the community to look at what we're now proposing should be. Sometimes there's a number of changes, sometimes there's none, sometimes it's a complete overhaul. At times we've taken a number of policies and combined them, for example. So we rescind a few policies and combine it all into one. Other times, we'll expound on a policy. So, and when it's posted, you can see what the changes that the Bureau is proposing. And then that stays up for 30 days and then comes down. And as I said, we receive the union's comments or feedback and incorporate what other comments might have come from, community members or members during the second review process. Then it, goes to the chief's office for their approval, and as well as to the Department of Justice for those that are designated DOJ related policies. So they will, work with that. Some of them, depending upon the nature of them, sometimes we just send them to them for their review and comment. And other times, such as the force policy, it's a very, collaborative process where we meet. Used to be face-to-face, and now, through Zoom or what have you, to work through the, issues that, DOJ might have with our proposed policies. And for those, the DOJ has to give us approval in order for them to be enacted. So we go through that process, and finally, when everybody's given the green light, then they will go up and we'll go back on the website to show what the new policy is. It also goes into our, it is posted in our, what we call a learning management system, LMS, for the members, and all members have to read and sign and acknowledge that they understand those policies in the, in that LMS system when we track all that. And then 30 days after it's been posted to LMS, it actually takes effect. So the chief will sign it, but it doesn't take effect till everybody's had that 30-day opportunity to review, acknowledge, and sign off that they have read it and understood. And that's the way we know that our members are aware of any changes to the policy that the Bureau has enacted. I will tell you, although we have these timeframes, anytime if you folks had a policy that was not coming up for a while, but you wanted to, send in comments, any comments that come in either before or after the review period are maintained in a, file by the policy team and will be considered at the next time that the policy is reviewed. So, and as I said, these DOJ ones are annually and the others are supposed to be every 2 years. I will be honest with you that we have not yet got through all 200 that were even due on the 2-year cycle because, you know, the DOJ policies frankly take a lot of our, you know, time and energy, you know, given the nature of the settlement agreement and what have you. So there are some policies that, you know, we haven't looked at in a number of years. We just did one that probably hadn't been reviewed in 10 or 15 years, but we finally, you know, got that one through. So tonight you're going to hear about the proposed wellness directive, given that that's a new program. Leo's here to tell you all about, you know, what they, and he's sort of the subject matter. So as an example, when this was going to be developed, he would be designated as our policy team's subject matter expert on this wellness, as well as, you know, others that he involves. And the team worked with Leo and folks to, and, you know, took comments, frankly, from you guys, and the Training Advisory Council has also provided comments. And basically, he's going to go through the proposed policy for you tonight for your you know, review and comment if you so desire. And then that also is awaiting, I believe, union review, right, Leo? And then hopefully we'll get that enacted soon. So does anybody have questions about the process? I mean, or just the stages of it? You know, we're anxious to have, I will tell you that if you go to the website, you can sign up to get our automatic notices of when a policy is put up on the website for the, you know, for the initial review, for the second review, what have you. You can always go to the website to see if you have a particular directive that you're interested in. They're all listed, you know, they have numbers there. It's a numbering system, and but the top, you know, topics of the directive are, you know, included with the number. And as I said, you can, you know, review those. We also are committed, particularly, you know, with PCCEP, that, and I think this is part of the, in the PCCEP plan, that, you know, if there were directives that the PCCEP wanted us to look at outside of our regular cycle, we would entertain that as well. So if during the course of this, you know, any, you know, PCCEP or any subcommittee, you know, came upon one that you wanted us to, you know, take a look at. We're constantly in the business, you know, with, you know, when the legislature changes laws, for example, the, you know, force policy has to change because they, you know, made some changes last session or what have you. So we're constantly trying to keep up with those so that the members are, you know, within the law, which obviously is the goal. And then, but we, you know, certainly welcome and would solicit all of you engaging in with us in the process of policy development. It's important for us to hear what you think of the, you know, the proposed, or give us suggestions as to what you'd like included in our policies. And I can assure you those are taken very seriously. And then at the end, once it's the process is through, you'll see on the website an explanation. You know, we put out a list of all the comments we received, and you know, some get a lot of comments and some only get Dan Handelman's, but Dan's a very faithful contributor, as I'm sure you're all aware. But we will put in all the comments that we received, and then for those that weren't adopted for whatever reason, we try to explain why they weren't included in this particular go around in terms of the change to the policy, and it give you a reason why it wasn't, you know, feasible or to, you know, adopt a particular suggestion or comment. So we'd like to have you involved and like to, you know, explain to you why we wouldn't or haven't incorporated your suggestions, so that you don't feel like your time is wasted in any stretch of the imagination. So please, you know, feel free to sign up to get those automatic notices, and then you won't miss out on any. And if the committee wants to take up any after the wellness one, you know, we'd be happy to provide any, you know, of the subject matters for any of the other policies you'd like to address in this committee.
Excellent. That was wonderful. Thank you. Wow, that was so clean and clear, easy to follow. Appreciate that.
Okay, Barb? Yeah, okay, just checking.
Yeah, and it's recorded so folks can go back and learn, which is really important. Is once you hear the process spoken, then we can refer people to listen, and then they can have a better understanding and knowledge for how things work. That way things can get done better, I think, maybe. Anyways, I don't want to waste any more time. Leo Harris is here to give us an insight on the wellness directives for PPB, which is something I'm very interested in, because if we want good relationships, we got to have healthy officers. So Leo, you want to take over?
Yes, please, except I might ask Mary Claire to answer a question first. Tia had a question. Does the mayor have any part of it? And I'm assuming she means of the directive process.
He's certainly welcome to comment on anyone as any other member of the community would, but for the most part, I would say that he doesn't. There have been a couple of times when the mayor has directed us in, on a particular policy. For one, I can give you an example with the CS gas last during the protests of 2020. The mayor directed us to change our policy, but for the most part, I would say the mayor doesn't, play a active role, but clearly there are, he does have a police, or in the past has had a police advisor, so they're aware of, obviously of what we're taking up, and certainly could forward. But in terms of him having to approve the policy, it stops at the chief's office usually.
Okay, thank you.
All right, things on my Zoom seem to be moving pretty slow tonight. I don't know how everyone else's is. I guess I'll ask Amy or Barb, what do you think about asking people to take 3 or 4 minutes and find this directive, which Claudia posted in the chat, and read it? It's pretty short. It's only 3 pages long, which some of ours are very, very long. Would you rather do that or try to have me go through it with everybody on here? And maybe everyone's read it. Maybe I should have started.
I've read it.
I think many of
So
us.
I think most of us have read it. So if you just want to go through it quickly, and yes, this is Barb talking through Amy's machine. I don't even want to go there.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Awesome. I'll just talk through it. Someone put something in the chat if I'm lagging or my audio is cutting in and out. The wellness directive was brand new. So unlike a lot of directives, we didn't have anything to work with. So we looked at a lot of different directives from around the country for different police agencies related to their wellness programs. And we crafted our own. And we did put it out for both of the universal reviews. And we got some community feedback. And I was closely working with Ashley and Laurel Mitchell-Green, who are part of the policy team. And we talked about each comment and tried to figure out if it was something that was valuable, and we included it. There were some that we didn't necessarily adopt, but it was a very healthy discussion, and it helped us a lot come to what we have here. Our definition of wellness is a state of being physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and financially healthy. Prior to that, we had thriving, and one of the comments from Dan Handelman was, are we trying to imply that cops should be thriving financially? And obviously that was not the case. More what we wanted was financial health, good financial, not a lot of debt, savings, etc., like that. So we changed that. We obviously think, and I think Amy and Barb brought it up, our members are out interacting with the public every day. And if their wellness is thriving, which I would prefer, but even if they're just healthy, they're going to do a much better job interacting with community members. And for us, that means them being emotionally healthy, getting plenty of rest, eating healthy, staying physically fit, because at times this job can be very demanding physically. There are obviously a lot of different things related to shifts and being called back into work. We have a lot of members on call, and so sleep sometimes is an issue. And the more that we can bolster everyone's wellness in all of those areas, they're going to do a lot better job in their personal life, and they're going to do a lot better job at work serving the community. Under procedure, this policy basically institutionalizes the wellness program, says that there's a wellness program coordinator who oversees all of it, who oversees training for new staff and new members of the Bureau. Our policy does cover everyone, not just sworn staff. So our professional staff and our sworn staff, we care about all of their wellness, and we plan to work on educating and encouraging and removing barriers to any wellness issues for all of them, not just our sworn staff. We established wellness committees in each RU. I know Mary Claire said the word RU, or the words, responsibility unit. So each RU has a different amount of ability to commit to some of this. And so we wanted them each to be in charge of that and not just have a one size fits all approach. Some of our objectives are to increase member resiliency in response to physical injury and potentially reducing injury-related leave. We do have a lot of members get hurt, and obviously we think they would get less hurt if they were in better shape, and if they did get hurt, they would recover more quickly if they were in shape. So that's huge. We want to increase their resiliency in emotional injury and trauma, right? We have members every day interacting with the community, and some of the stuff they see and experience can be very traumatic. And obviously there's a potential that things like that happen on a daily basis for these members. So how do we keep them emotionally healthy? Obviously that's a concern in the wellness program. Last but not least, we want to increase safety and trust in the community through improving member decision-making, communication, and customer service. I think everything can relate back to any human's ability to do work and do a job and think and process. And if you're tired and you're overworked and you're out of shape, it's really hard to be calm. It's really hard to detach and be able to show empathy and sympathize with people and still make good decisions. I know that Dan Handelman and some people don't love that we have the word customer service in there. They disagree with that. So we can all totally politely disagree. I would argue the bulk of our job is customer service. And I know he brings up when we are using force on someone, we're not doing customer service. And there's somewhat of a point there, but 99% of our work is interacting with people in the community, and we're not using force. And we do want our members to provide good customer service. And so I like having that in there. I think service is the most important thing that police officers do on a daily basis. In here, we also have wellness time during work hours. So up to 4 hours per week, 1 hour per day to work on wellness related topics. And that would allow members to maybe have a telehealth visit or go see a counselor or a therapist during work hours. We want to remove as many barriers as possible for members to be able to do things like that. And it's really challenging if you work swing shift or graveyard shift to go see a therapist or a counselor during the only times that you're supposed to be sleeping, and maybe your sleep's already not that great. And obviously if they get an hour during their workday, it might be challenging to find a therapist in the middle of the night. But we're going to be working with some of them that are willing to have flexible hours and try to meet with our members at times when our members are available. So we're trying to remove as many barriers as possible to that in particular. Obviously they can work on fitness. At some point we're going to have financial classes and classes about stress and resilience, things like that, for them to work on. Yoga is still an option, and also finding time to meditate. All of those things are things that we push during that 1 hour of wellness training time during their work hours. Obviously, that can get canceled if there is a protest or there is a big incident. Obviously, the incident the other day on the freeway tied up almost the entire city, and there was no ability for people to get their wellness time during their work hours on that day. Totally understandable, unfortunately. Everything that we do and offer related to wellness is voluntary. Shouldn't say everything. We've had a few mandatory classes, but for the most part, we want it to be voluntary. We don't think people respond very well if you force them to do things. And obviously, we want to encourage them and educate and motivate them, but we don't want to have to do it through brute force and mandating that they do some of these things. Those are all the main parts of the new wellness directive. Like we talked about earlier, it's worked its way through most of the process that Mary Claire talked about. And it is, I think, at the unions. So it's very close to getting implemented. And we appreciate all of you reading it, and probably many of you provided comments. Sometimes we don't know who leaves those. It's an option to leave your name or not. So a lot of them are anonymous comments. But we appreciate you taking time tonight out of your meeting to talk about it. Obviously, it's something that's very near and dear to our heart, and I know you also. So thank you very much for working on it and thinking about it. And I'll take any questions about the Wellness Directive.
Okay, who would like to start out with some questions? Any takers? Okay, Tia has her hand up, and then Barb Brzezinski. Go ahead, Tia.
I see that the member participation is voluntary. Is there anything that is required? Like, I was hoping that my comment and suggestion was, when I wrote in, was that there was at least like a 15 to 20 minute check-in on an officer's mental health a week or something minimal, at least a required check-in.
I remember that comment. I would love to have something like that. We are going to work towards having something like that, but we don't want it in a policy where it's mandated. And if someone doesn't do it, they're going to be held accountable or get in trouble. Obviously, there's all sorts of things related to like a yearly mental health check-in, or more often than that we'd like to work towards. As that would be changing someone's working conditions. We would have to run that through the union, which I imagine they would say no. They don't want mandatory things like that. They're worried about them becoming like a fitness for duty type test. That's an additional level of review. So it's always a balance, right? I think most of us in the wellness team feel very strongly like it'd be a really good thing to go do a check-in very often. So know that we really care about it, and we are absolutely working towards that. And we haven't figured out how we're going to do that, but it probably won't end up in the policy, but we're working towards something like that.
It makes sense. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, when I worked in the city of Santa Rosa, California, they had a gym in the police department, and they were required to work out. Are the officers here not? They don't have that? Are you saying?
We do have gyms. They have provided gyms since I've been here. I've been here 20 years, and they have nice gyms, but we've never done any fitness or working out during work hours. So this is a change. They were encouraged to work out outside of work hours. My understanding of past police politics is that they did not want to require people to work out. Same thing. They did not want to have a fitness standard, although a lot of agencies do have a fitness standard. The union resisted it, and the Bureau didn't want to do it because they were worried that it would cause somebody to get laid off or fired who couldn't meet the standard. I, again, am kind of on the I would love to have a standard and keep people more physically fit. And if somebody can't meet that standard, I would want to do whatever it took to get them to meet that standard. And if they couldn't, I don't want to say this entire statement, but can they do the job? So certainly something else that we're working towards, but that would be obviously negotiated with the union and everyone else.
Okay.
Leo, I have a question. Listening to you talk kind of makes me think about every single one of my clients that keeps saying no. No, I don't want forced treatment. No, I don't want forced medication. No, I don't want to do this. But we'll keep supporting you even though there are no metrics, there are no measures. But yet when the officers go out and find these folks in a complete state of decay or disarray, I kind of want to know whether or not that officer has a standard of functionality where he won't be kind of on edge working with these folks who really don't want to do much lately for themselves. How do we assure that the responders are going to be in a state of clarity to respond to these people? That I just, without a standard, without some sort of, I guess, metrics, I don't, how are we as a community supposed to determine if an individual is quote unquote fit or, you know, qualified? How about qualified to respond to this situation? I would rather use qualified than fit, because you can be unfit and still qualified. But you see where I'm going is, like, we have standards that we're asking from everybody in the world to perform under, but yet we're not asking PBB to have standards that they perform under. And I'm a little question mark in my head. Does that make any sense, what I just said?
Kind of. I can't imagine how, and I'm assuming that you mean a standard for the police officers and a standard that they are mentally or emotionally qualified or fit.
Yes, and or physically, yeah.
Yep. Physically would obviously be much more easy to measure. I don't know how they would implement something to make sure that they were still emotionally qualified. Obviously, when officers get hired, there's a very extensive background process. They do go through psychiatric testing, and there are lots of people that don't make it because they're not qualified. Now, obviously, over time, maybe that could change depending on the types of trauma and things that you experience. But they still are required to meet all of our other policies. And so there are still policies that require them to be professional and provide good service. And obviously, these officers are out in the public every day being filmed. People can make complaints. So if somebody's not qualified, there's a lot of different ways and avenues that the Bureau would start finding out, you know, Leo has started getting a significant number of complaints for courtesy or whatever. You have to interact with district attorneys and judges and other people in the law enforcement system. And it's not unheard of, but I would say it's rare that we have somebody out there working that isn't qualified. Obviously, when we have people self-report or we have other members or members of the community report that an officer is not doing well or is not qualified or is unfit somehow emotionally, the EAP program reaches out to them, and there are members who have responded well to that, and we've gotten them the resources that they need and gotten them back to a place where they are, you know, providing good service and are fit and qualified. So I don't know, that'd be probably a longer, interesting conversation about trying to have some kind of standard and how often would you have to meet that standard. I would say the bulk of the people meet that standard every day when they come to work. But there's not a hoop that you jump through every day to make sure that you're still qualified, if that makes sense.
Now we're talking. So my concern is we're here looking at an agreement to improve community relations and reduce the number of people that get killed. So I got to keep going back to the wellness piece until that becomes zero. Because in my mind, I believe that if an individual goes out on a certain number of calls where the other individuals are extremely hard to manage, hard to work with, uncooperative, over time, you become on edge. working with those individuals. I know you do because I see a lot of regular people get on edge. And so that's why I think that sometimes during the course of a year, if an individual maybe has a whole lot of things he responded to that were highly traumatizing or highly emotional, but yet folks don't want to talk about it, how is someone going to get help if they're not willing to expose it? I guess that's what I'm kind of wondering, is like, if it's all self-reporting and no one reports, how are we going to help folks get better? I guess.
Amy, if I could just jump in for a second.
Yes, please.
To your point, you know, we're also, I think you've heard that we're now doing ABLE training. So that is another attempt at having members feel comfortable, you know, identifying their peers that they see, because what we want to do is, you know, just exactly what you're saying, is avoid, not catch them doing something wrong, but even get ahead of it. And so, you know, and these, you know, both Jason and Leo can speak better to it, but, you know, there's this perception that, you know, and it's, you know, part of the national, you know, narrative that officers, you know, don't, you know, confront each other. And so the ABLE program is really, you know, sort of almost a cultural shift where we're encouraging members to reach out to their other members, no matter what rank, to try and you know, spot those kind of things, you know, before they get to the point of, you know, being a problem. So, you know, if your partner is all of a sudden, you know, like you said, cranky or whatever, or you know, appears to be having difficulties, then people can intervene before anything, you know, untoward happens. So I think that's another way that hopefully, you know, the Bureau will be, you know, working towards, you know, identifying those issues that you are concerned about.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying not to ask too intensely, but my heart is burning to know those answers. Go ahead, Jared.
And I'd like to add, Amy, there's definitely, as Mary Claire said it, what we're trying to do is change the culture. You know, I think in the past people were hesitant to say, I need help. I think people were hesitant to admit, you know, all these things that I've seen or done might add up and at some point affect me. And that's where I think we've always had a good EAP program, and the EAP program was there to help people if they got kind of in over their head. And I think that's the whole goal of the wellness program, is to proactively and preventatively try to get people to reach out for help. And obviously a part of that is changing the culture. One of the things that we push really hard is to try to make a connection right now with a mental health counselor or therapist before you need it. I mean, obviously members could be involved in a deadly force encounter, or they might have one experience that causes them some issues, or they could have a series of incidents that add up and cause them some issues. And we know that when members reach out for help and they try a therapist or a counselor, it's not always a great match right off the bat. Almost all of the therapists and counselors that we recommend, members tell us how great they are, and then there's always one or two members that say it wasn't a great match. So we try to let people know that and try to get them to go do that work ahead of time, so that they're not in the middle of a crisis when they're trying to reach out for help, trying to figure out who they would talk to. See that Gloria has a question. You're on mute.
You're muted. Can you unmute her, Claudia?
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, good. I just wanted to know, Leo, what happens when some officers have many complaints, let's just say 4 or more in their file, in their personnel file, and they are obviously experiencing some kind of burnout. They're very emotional, and it's hard for other officers to communicate with them. And they have said that they don't feel that they're in good shape mentally. What happens to those officers? I mean, do they just see a counselor or this EAP person that you're talking about, and then they return to work and they know that they're not in top shape?
Well, that's a really good question. I appreciate you asking that. No, there's all sorts of things that we can do. We can find places for them off the street. We can get them a place. Maybe they even put in some kind of PTSD or stress claim, and they take some time off work. They get some help and come back when they're ready. There are a lot of different systems in place. There's EIS and other triggers where if you get a certain number of complaints in a certain amount of time, there's automatically supervisors who would have to step in and check on that person and see what's going on. And they would be referred to either internal affairs or to the EAP program for people to reach out and start that process. And not every member is totally receptive. You know, there's no guarantee. They might say, no, I'm totally fine. But once again, there are a lot of different processes in place. And if they continue to get complaints, there's all sorts of discipline processes in place that would not allow that to just keep on going. Obviously, our whole goal is to do it preemptively.
You don't necessarily want to punish them, but you do want
Absolutely
to
not.
help them for whatever the problem is, but I don't see them putting them back in the fray is going to help.
Totally agree with you. Yep. No. And we do have those mechanisms in place so that we don't have to put them back in the fray until they are back healthy again. And obviously our whole goal, especially mine and the wellness program and EAP, is to get them help and not at all go the punishment route, because the punishment route is not going to probably fix the underlying problems that are causing the symptoms that people are actually seeing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very good question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jared?
Thank you. And thanks, Leo, for the work you've done on this. I acknowledge that it's a new program, new policy directive. I know that the Bureau has been training on wellness as well, and that's a new function. I was curious what you have in store or in mind, if anything, to evaluate the effectiveness of the parameters you've set going forward, you know, in terms of any data collection on the hours used. Obviously, you wouldn't want to inquire about people, you know, seeking therapy or, you know, particular medical treatment, but maybe just in terms of the hours used, or if there's any sort of, you know, informal surveys collected from officers, if the program's working for them, or if it's, you know, maybe I need, you know, comp time so I can go in the day. I'm working night shift. I'm a new officer, or, you know, maybe it's 6 hours instead of 4, or maybe it's a mandatory 1 or something. What do you have in store in terms of like a quality assurance or a feedback loop so that you can tinker this new policy, new directive, and tinker the training to really get the most out of it? I mean, you know, we share your goal of getting the officers the help, and I really do applaud the Bureau for going this direction with a directive and the training that you've done. I want it to be successful. I sense, you know, strongly that you do too, and it will be to the benefit of officers and the community. So just curious about how you're going to evaluate the program where you set it, and how that might improve going forward or change going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a great question, because obviously metrics matter. Like, is this effective? We need to figure that out. We have some ideas, and we had some ideas when we went into it in 2020, kind of threw a monkey wrench in some of those. Obviously, our plans, big picture over the long haul, is to look at things like complaints. Do they go up or down? Do they change, like the types of complaints? Do we have less courtesy and conduct complaints? Obviously, we would track member injuries. You know, as we raise hopefully the level of fitness, do we have less injuries? And then the time loss due to injuries, does that go down? There are a variety of other things too, lawsuits, all the things that we thought we were going to measure in 2020, because that would have been the first full year of having the wellness program in place. And obviously, for a variety of reasons, injuries went way up, lawsuits went up, complaints went up. Even when you remove all of those from the data, it does not leave us a very clear picture of the impact that the wellness program had, because it obviously shifted everything in the Bureau. So there were less officers going to calls. We didn't have the ability to go to some low level calls. So it was not a typical year where you could look at all that data. That's our plan going forward. Yes, during each of the wellness classes, we do a survey. And then we will continue to do individual self-reporting surveys about morale and the effectiveness of the wellness program. So yes, we plan on checking into all of that, and obviously look forward to getting data that helps supports it. I mean, obviously there's definitely some, I'm tired, so I'm not thinking clearly, but there's some, not downsides, but like, some cost to the Bureau, having members off the street working on their wellness. So there has to be some offset that makes it worth it. And obviously if we can have complaints go down and injuries go down and lawsuits go down, time lost due to injuries go down and morale go up, that would make it all worth it. And obviously we care about the retention and the recruitment issue also. It's like we have people leaving pretty frequently. And if we can use this wellness program to have people stay and realize, no, I want to work on my own wellness and I can, potentially bear this another day because I get to work on myself. And hopefully when we're recruiting, tell people, hey, we really care about your wellness and we're going to give you this wellness program. We're going to give you as much training as possible in these different areas. And then 1 hour of your day on a normal day, if nothing huge happens, you get to spend it working on your own wellness on all these different things that are super important. So
that's really
good
helpful.
question.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the metrics that you've sent on or set sort of as a broad picture. Just one, clarification, is that mean you're going to track the hours of wellness that are logged? Like, will you be able to see that the Bureau's used 1,000 hours this year for wellness? And would you see Leo has used, 28 hours of wellness? So then I might triangulate that with, oh, Leo hasn't gotten injured this year. Leo hasn't had any complaints this year, and he used 28 hours of wellness time, or we're just throwing that number out, maybe 15, because we're talking every week. Is that something that you guys can track, the hours?
Right now, no. And we are looking into that. Obviously, our data analysts would love that. Obviously, you've been around the Bureau a little bit. Some of our technology capabilities are not super awesome. So it might be challenging to do. It could be done on a hand scribbled note. We have done that at times. We have been trying to track people's use of the wellness time by hand. And as soon as COVID started, there was definitely some significant periods where people weren't sharing pens and weren't wanting to touch the same piece of paper. And then the gyms were closed. And so it has been hard to collect that. But that's definitely something that we'll look at, trying to track hours to specific outcomes.
I had a question, Leo.
Go ahead.
Leo, my name is Byron. Who's looking out for you guys and your wellness and able to give your coworkers this wellness? And is it when they're coming through the door, are we going to pump this like you see a McDonald's commercial every day to make these people understand this is the direction where they want to go in? And then I guess the people that are going to be applying these things to everybody, how are we going to be able to figure out who are the good candidates to do this and be able to communicate with all the other coworkers on telling them how important this is for them to get this wellness and to be back out in the streets? And on their one more, I'm sorry. And if they can, is there an option that they can put the wellness or whoever they go see, can they put it in with their time when they put in their time for their time sheets? Like use a code to say that, you know, SV is for 1 hour on their timesheet or something of that nature?
All good questions. Yes, they could. I think we will have to talk to the fiscal people because they do timesheets totally in a way that would be challenging to use that. Trying to think of all the different questions in there. We have definitely like tried to put out information to our RU wellness committees to then spread it. We obviously, it's helpful for us because there are wellness classes that are required. So I said most things are optional. There are a few wellness classes like at in-service, maybe about next year, it's hopefully going to be sleep. We've done stress and resilience. We've done nutrition. We've done heart health, cardiac health, and some of those are not optional. So we do get to see everybody at least once a year talking about wellness things. We do have wellness committees, and then we are pushing people to use their wellness time. One of the things that we have going on right now is a supervisor's in service, and the wellness class for that is all about the supervisor, number one, prioritizing their own wellness, and then also prioritizing the members below them and who they represent, pushing them to take their wellness time, pushing them to keep wellness as something that's in the forefront of everybody's minds at roll calls and meetings and even one-on-ones. I do frequently hear from people that it's now always a topic of conversation, people's wellness. So I feel very good. I feel like we are changing the culture. I feel like people are more worried about their sleep and fitness and nutrition more than they ever have been. So I'm very excited about that. So I do think that it's happening on an organic level. I think that part of that goes to show how injured people are, because they're willing to take the help and they're glad, they feel desperate for people to care about their wellness and like give them opportunities like this. So I do feel like we're having a very positive impact. There's very few people that don't use their wellness time and are public about it and say, oh, I don't need it or don't want it. I do think there's definitely a becoming more of like a peer pressure to take care of yourselves. And one of the biggest things, I appreciate your question about me and Amy and Todd and anybody else working in the wellness program. How do we take care of our own? Well, we have to take our own medicine, right? So we have to, the only thing that we can control is ourselves, and we can't let ourselves get beaten down, worn down. So I know for at least myself, I have a therapist and I go there somewhat regularly, and I do yoga, and I have been meditating for a couple of years and I love it. And so I can tell people with a high degree of confidence, you know, that these things can work for you if you keep working at it, and give myself as an example. So we all do try very hard to take care of ourselves, but that's also our message to the members, that you're the only one that can take care of yourself. We're here to support you. We're here to remove barriers. We're here to educate you. We're here to motivate you. But there's nothing in this directive that requires people to get enough sleep. There's nothing that requires them to eat a balanced diet. There's nothing that requires them to stay physically fit. And that's one of the things that we, I think, decided early on to make most things optional. There's just no way to force people to do that. So we have to do it other ways. Go ahead.
Is that I can't think of another example, but the military, they have their guys, they have to stay physically fit. So is there something that you can, you know what I mean, take from that in a sense?
PT, man, I would love to. I would love that. The union would say absolutely not. So the closest I think we're going to get, at least right now, is it being optional and us trying to get people as involved as possible. And I think we're having pretty good success. I would bet we're at 70 or 80% of the people are interested in it and are using their time.
Thanks for answering my question, Leo.
Absolutely. Great question.
I'd like to know what data you might be collecting on the
Rochelle
ABLE
had a
program.
question.
Go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, I'd like to know what data you might be collecting on the ABLE program.
I am not. I just went to my ABLE training on Monday. So I am not in charge of the ABLE program, and I don't know what data they're collecting. Do you mean like if there's an individual and you think they're doing something they shouldn't and you take some intervention, does that get logged or documented? I doubt it on a small scale. The whole point is to try to help members realize that they're doing something that's not good and change it ahead of time and refer them to, if there's some underlying wellness issue, especially refer them to some kind of resources and get them focused on things that would help them. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. I will ask my boss and maybe get back to you on any data they're collecting related to ABLE.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, if there's still some kind of policy violation, that would get reported and that would be tracked. Go ahead, Barb.
Hey, couple of comments, questions. One is the timeline. What is the timeline for the wellness directive to head to the chief? And as a committee, are we interested in making a recommendation that PCCEP support that and taking that to PCCEP? I have that suggestion after Leo tells us the timeline. That's my first question.
Timeline, I would imagine that it's been through most of the hoops. I think it's at the unions right now. I think the chief's office will approve it, but it could be somewhere in January maybe. So I think there still would be time. Obviously, if that's something you all wanted to publicly support, I think that would be a great thing.
That part of the question was for everybody else. It's a question for you. So I don't know if anybody wants to support that, get a hold of me and we can easily do that. The steering committee meets tomorrow though. So if we want it on the main agenda for the December meeting, that needs to be said and put there. The other thing is, does anybody want to talk further about other, have future conversations about other suggestions for the wellness program? And do we want to do that as an ad hoc kind of thing, or do we want to continue to do that here? Because we were hoping with the new year to start transitioning into some other topics also.
Hey, Barb, in terms of your timeline question, just so you understand, it went to the union last week, but they have 15 business days to, respond back to the policy team about whether they have any issues with the policy as written, but we're not anticipating any problems. And the chief's office obviously has already, because we take it to the chief's office and get our direction from there, obviously. So once the union, weighs in, then we'll be able to, proceed pretty quickly thereafter. So as Leo said, probably early January sometime.
So my answer to Gloria's question might be that we come up with recommendations that we think it should have metrics to track and make some suggestions.
I'm going to be done with this in 10 minutes.
Okay, Judith.
And why did you say okay, Judith? I'm sorry.
Because you were
I
live.
can hear you.
That's weird. It said mute. My apologies. Sorry.
Yeah, I just noticed it said mute too. That's weird.
So that that would be my thoughts about that.
Yeah, my thoughts are Gloria's question is sort of along what Jared was asking earlier, which is what I was trying to ask to begin with, is like, how are we going to know that what you're doing is working without some sort of values, guidelines, metrics, outcomes is what I call them, to look at. So that's an interesting thought.
In the wellness directive 1.3, it says wellness program shall periodically submit a report to the chief's to the chief of police outlining wellness program project goals and measurable outcomes to evaluate efficacy. So it is
Awesome.
in there.
There it is.
And that's definitely something that we will be able to show to you at some point.
Excellent. Did that answer your question, Gloria? You're on mute. You got to hit your button.
At that time, I think we might just be able to support it because we will be able to read and, you know, see how the matrix is working, But for us to give a recommendation or a show of support for it before we even see what the report has in January, I think that's a bit premature.
Okay. Maybe you and I can talk about this part offline for a second, but
okay.
Whatever anybody else has to say is always welcome.
Going once, going twice. Any other takers? Any more questions? Leo, you were marvelous. Thank you. Man, that really helped.
Well,
thank you, Mary Claire. You were wonderful too. That really helped.
You're welcome, always.
It basically boils down to everybody's going to, now, are the wellness directives online not in red letter, or are they still in red letter posted? So folks can read what's out there now. They're not posted?
Leo, will you explain what you explained to me on the phone earlier about the jumping wellness directive?
No, they have legs.
I feel bad. Yes. You had to have saved a copy, which obviously I don't know where you or Claudia put a link to one. So that's great.
Yes.
So people can find it at the link. And it looks like maybe Judith just posted one. So I appreciate that. On our website, as soon as it is fully enacted, it will be posted in the normal section where all the directives are. This one was on and off only because of the universal review process where we take it down, assess all of the comments, and then put it back up. And there's set time periods in that process. So once it is totally ratified and put in place, it will be on our website for people to see all the time.
Excellent. That'll make great future conversation. We can come back and see how much of this actually benefited everybody. So
I had a question real quick, Amy. Leo,
yeah, go ahead.
Is it out of the question to go down there and look at the workers? I don't know. I feel like sometimes going down on the streets and walking around the neighborhood, I get a better feel if things are working or not. And as a wellness member, I'm just wondering, like, is that out of the question to, you know, look around to see how it's working or not? Maybe have or find more suggestions.
Where would you look would be my first question, because I think that's a great question. There's people spread out all over the bureau. So where would you envision doing that? Like in a precinct? I mean, I guess there's gyms, but there's just not a lot of places. Obviously, we wouldn't want to interrupt their workouts. If they're meditating or doing a telehealth visit, they would be off in a private place. I think the surveys that we send out is probably the best place to get their honest, anonymous feedback. We do have people call us pretty regularly, and we tell them, we're only here for you, so call us or email us. And we do get regular emails and phone calls from people to tell us how they think we're doing. I love your thought about.
Go ahead.
Keep going. No, I love your thought about trying to like really get down there and get out there with them and figure out how it's working. You know, maybe the option is, you know, talking to Chase or other members and ask them. In some ways, I wouldn't want to be here myself, because it's like, if they want to say, oh, it's terrible, I'd rather they give you honest feedback. I don't know if that's you all asking to go on ride-alongs, you know, when after COVID's kind of gotten to a point where we can have people go on ride-alongs again. You know, I think that would be an important place to go out there and see it in action.
Because I think sometimes if you can just walk and sometimes I tell my boss, just walk out into an area and just look and listen to people's conversations. You pick up a lot of things and just hearing, you don't have to say nothing. And so I guess that would be where I would start. You know, if they're all in the gym,
Yep.
just sit there and grab a weight and just listen to everything. You see how the traffic of language is going back across each other's. So.
Well, I just wanted to jump in. You know, we're talking about the Bureau getting body worn cameras coming up here. It might be a couple, you know, a few months or maybe a year or more. Sorry, for that wasn't meant to be a joke.
Or two.
Wasn't meant to be a joke. But
Yeah.
you know, one of the features that the new technology has is to allow sergeants and supervisors to check in, instantly tap into the body camera, see someone on the job. So you know, the physical distance that Leo's mentioning isn't as much of a hurdle in that case. And you know, regular audits, whether it's a live look in or an after the fact, you can get sort of a sense of how someone's doing the 90% customer service type of job. And that can be a factor in wellness, you know, or be indicative of it. So that's, you know, just something to think about. It's obviously down the road, but, you know, I appreciate that this committee is thinking about wellness, and the Bureau is obviously thinking about it. It's the number one resource they have is the people. So I think all of this is a good conversation to have. And I appreciate the, you know, 1.3, and there's going to be a report and measurable objectives. That doesn't really say, you know, that they're actually how they're going to be measured. So to the extent there are recommendations to be made about how you measure and whether or not, you know, the Bureau should invest in an app like they do for the community engagement to log your wellness so that you can collect it more easily, or maybe something ought to be set up. I mean, to me, this is the type of expenditure that the public and the Bureau can get behind, because it really goes to the number one resource that the Bureau has, which is the people, and making sure, you know, got a lot of responsibility and a lot of power. So making sure that they're, you know, feeling good when they're doing their job is pretty important. So that's just my thoughts. And I wanted to make that plug for the body worn camera. That policy and all that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks, maybe a couple of years, but we'll get there. Just making sure you're still awake, Mary Claire.
Yeah. No, I was going to worry about your mental health right now if you think it's a couple of years. I mean, a couple of weeks.
We're good. It's all, I appreciate.
I think it's called delusional disorder, but I'm not sure.
We're talking institutional change, and that takes time.
It does take time. Yep.
And I appreciate
We're
that
all
you guys
behind it.
You're doing the groundwork, and I appreciate it. Thanks, Leo. I thought the presentation was really good, and thank you too, Mary Claire. Appreciate it.
Barb has a question.
Go ahead, Barb.
Barb Moore has a couple of comments, one of which is, Mary Claire, we're here for your mental health too. So Amy and I would definitely like to get together with you and take you for coffee over the holidays.
Oh, thank you. I will
Number
gladly
two,
accept
speaking
that.
of coffee, Byron.
Can I have hot chocolate instead though? Because I'm not a coffee.
Absolutely.
Tea, whatever, anything.
Anything.
Hot water if you really want.
Yeah. Whatever you want.
Byron, Starbucks by my house. There's still cups there very periodically. We should just wander in and listen. Before traffic got axed, there were like nightly, all the bikes there would be there at 7 o'clock at night at Starbucks. That's a great place to overhear them talking about what's going on. And then finally, as far as the wellness program goes and deeper dives, the Training Advisory Council puts out, instead of doing like recommendations singularly like PCCEP, the PCCEP does, they do more of reports with recommendations that are longer and involve interviews with people, and they're just, you should check them out on their
until you just told everybody about it with the police
website.
there.
They sorry. And this year, one of their committees is doing is whatever, the wellness program committee, and they're gonna do the report and all that deep dive into the wellness program. So that's just sort of a shout out to them and a place to check out other information or see it as it's coming along.
Thank you.
That's what I got.
All righty. Well, folks, we're just about at time. Are there any suggestions of things y'all would like to hear about or learn about for next month's meeting? And if you can't think of anything right now, please submit your ideas to PCCEP. We really want to, listen to what the public wants to hear and do some more work around more education around policy and procedure. Because I think that'll help us better understand how to make change.
Yes.
Well, on that note, I think maybe the police ought to buy some drones. That might be the cheapest way.
We'll see what the community would think of that one.
Which reminds me, I can let you know that we're having a meeting next Monday on developing surveillance policy for the city.
Ooh.
Check
yes.
out
How
Smart
timely.
Cities. Yes, check out Smart Cities PDX for information on that.
Ooh.
See if I was going to actually ask Claudia if she would tweet it or, send it through our social media as well.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the US government now has exploding drones that are much less cheaper than missiles.
You wouldn't even begin to believe and a lot of times it's very innocuous stuff. It's not just police. It's what does the city do with when they use technology that can collect personally identifiable information about folks and what happens to that data and who can have access to it. And so it's that's what we're working on.
Does it tell you, Judith, all the places now that have cameras that are downtown?
We believe that transparency is a very important part of the way that we should be operating as a city. So we encourage that, but I don't know if you can see where everything is. I don't know, but more will be revealed.
Excellent. Well, in that case, for all you that may or may not know, we're having a unique meeting tomorrow. Our steering committee meeting is meeting tomorrow because of the holidays, and it'll be the first meeting where we won't have any official chair, co-chair. It'll just be the chairs of the subcommittees. So we're meeting at what, 5:30, Theo? Is that right?
Yes, no, it should be 6, shouldn't it?
I thought it was 5:30.
I think all of them were 6 o'clock now, aren't they? Because of Anne?
It should be 6 o'clock.
Yeah, well, Anne's not even going to be there, so.
That's true, but I think it's still 6.
So the steering committee is going to be from 6 to 7:30.
Yep.
Okay. So I encourage everyone to come if you want to learn about the new PCCEP. I'm going to call it Centerfold. How about that?
It's still the steering committee, but sure, that's a good name.
Yeah, Centerfold, right? All righty. On that note, I too am tired. Been a long day. So I'm going to